everyone, Christine here. In this video, I'm going to talk about how I paid off $99,000 worth of student loans within a 4-year period. First off, I made another video talking about kind of my journey to being debt-free and my decision to being debt-free and why I decided to pay off my student loans. So I'm going to link that above and check that out. All right, let's get to it. These were the steps that I took in my journey to help me pay off my student loans quicker and get them out of my hair. First step is to make more money. Well, this seems pretty obvious. Not everyone could just jump into their boss's office and land a nice new raise. I know that I couldn't, but what I did to help me make more money was I worked a bunch of overtime at my main job. In one of the years that I worked, I want to say I worked like 90 hours worth of overtime, maybe more. I did a lot of time and a half. On top of that, 2 years ago, I got a second job. I worked per diem at another hospital, so that gave me 2 extra paychecks within the month to help me pay off my student loans sooner. And every single penny that I made from that second job went towards my student loans. It never went towards a personal expense. As soon as I got that payment, it went to my student loans. I put a caution that if you are going to work like an insane person like I did, you have to make sure you have a good stress relief outlet. And the biggest thing for me was that I had an end goal in mind. I knew I was doing this for a short-term period. It was to reach a goal that I really wanted to achieve. And by doing this now, I would never, hopefully, have to work that much again in the future. It was a very long year. It was a very hard year, but it was worth it. And thankfully, I no longer have to work 2 jobs to have all of my money just be dumped into the government's hands. The second tip is to spend less. I know, these are common tips. You're not really learning anything here. It'll get a little more in depth later. But some examples of spending less that I did were that I did not really upgrade my lifestyle, even though I was making more money than the no paycheck I had during my student times. I today still drive an old car. My car is a 2006, but it's paid off. I don't have any payments on it. And as much as I would love to upgrade my car and be able to hook my phone into my car and listen to my music and have all of the fancy stuff in the cars today, to me, it is just not worth it right now. My car works, my car runs. The other thing for phones, I used an old phone for like 4 or 5 years, and yeah, a lot of people made fun of me for it. It was this little tiny brick that didn't really have a good screen and was obviously old and outdated, but you know what? I didn't care because I wasn't buying a new phone. I was still using my old phone. It worked, right? And the other thing with spending less was I really did limit my spending. I tried to be cautious about going out with friends and kind of those little things that add up. You don't want to live your life like a monk and not do anything and never go out with friends and just work. That will lead to burnout and depression, but just try to be cautious with it. Try to maybe limit yourself to once or twice a month and be mindful. Try to cut back your expenses. My third tip is to go on the income-based repayment plan. This may seem a little counterintuitive to some of the advice that I'm giving, but this is my reason for it. Being on the income-based repayment plan typically has the lowest monthly payments. You are able to make extra payments when you have this payment plan, but I think this payment plan is a good one to have in place in case an emergency comes up or something happens and you have to divert your money elsewhere. It's comforting to know that you only owe this amount and you don't have to pay more. So my advice is to have the smallest amount of payment mandatory, pay extra, but if something comes up, then you divert your money elsewhere. My fourth tip is to go on an automatic payment plan. With me, when I was using Fed Loan, if I went on an automatic payment plan, I had an interest reduction of 0.25%. While that does not seem like a lot, if you have a large number of student loans, it does add up over time. It's a relatively painless switch that you can do. You should be making your payments on time anyways, and having the automatic payment plan not only gives you the reduction in interest, you know you're never going to be late with making a payment because it's just automatically going to be withdrawn from your bank account. You do have to make sure that you actually have enough money in your bank account and you don't want any type of overdraft going on. My fifth tip is to use the avalanche method. The avalanche method is what I tried. So going into this tip, I'm going to talk about there are two known methods of paying off debt. There's the snowball method and there's the avalanche method. So the reason why I chose the avalanche method is ultimately the avalanche method is going to save you more money. What the difference between the two methods is, with the avalanche method, you pay off the loans with the higher interest rates first, and then you go down to the loans with the smaller interest rates. With the snowball method, you pay off the loans with the smallest amounts. The reason why people recommend the snowball method is that they say you'll be more motivated as you're decreasing your number of loans, and if you're paying off the smallest amount first, you're going to be cutting back off the total number of loans quicker. However, I was already completely driven into paying off my student loans, and as excited as I was to close another loan account, I knew mathematically using the avalanche method was a better method for me. And to give a little more detail into my personal story with the avalanche method, when I was done with school, I had a total of 12 separate loans. All of them were the same interest rate except for two. My last two, the law had changed and the interest rates had gone down. Hooray! I saved those last two to be the last ones that I paid off. Even though they had a smaller balance, I was collecting less interest daily on them, and to me it just made more mathematical sense to pay off the higher interest rate loans sooner. But within all of those 10 loans that had the same interest rate, I did do the snowball method and I paid off the smaller balance of each of those loans with the higher interest rate, and then I moved to the last two with the lower interest rate. My sixth tip is to keep a spreadsheet. Keeping a spreadsheet helped my anxieties, excessive compulsive nature keep track of things, and it helped give me an idea of when I would be finally paying off my loans and gave me a goal to look forward to and remind me how much interest I was collecting each day by hanging on to these loans. So let me give you a little example of the spreadsheet that I used on this prehistoric computer that I have here that thankfully I can now upgrade from. This is the spreadsheet that I had made. This was my last year of paying off my loans. So by this time, I only had 4 loans left. What I did was I labeled each of the loans, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I put the total amount that I had due for each of those loans. And then what I did under that was I calculated how much interest I was collecting yearly on that loan and how much I was collecting daily. Now this is where I went a little bit crazy, but for people like me it really helps. I went ahead and calculated how my loan balance changed each and every day by adding the interest. So I had the month, the day of the month, and what that new balance was with the added interest. Then when it was time for payment, I went and wrote in how much my payment was. So because this payment went across all the loans, that looks like it was my monthly payment that I was required from my loans. And then I calculated what the new total was for all of my loans. And then I recalculated the new amount of annual interest I was collecting and daily interest that I was collecting, and then I went on to each day how much I was collecting. Then in this blue section is when I made a payment in addition to my annual payments. So here you can see I was paying off this third loan, which is why I had it highlighted in red. I write how much of the payment I made. So for that payment I paid $13.50 for my loan, and then I wrote how much that loan declined and then how much daily interest, and then I started over new with this loan. So my goal was paying off this loan, and you can see all of my extra payments that went towards this loan until I eventually paid it off and was able to start making the rest of my payment towards my new loan. What you might have realized that I did there, which would be my now 8th tip of paying off your loans early, was that in addition to my monthly payment that I had to make towards my loans, I made payments every 2 weeks as soon as I got paid. What that helps with is it'll cut back on the interest that is growing because you'll have a lower amount and therefore have a lower interest growing. And if you look in a 12-month span, you will end up making an extra payment in that span. What I did, because I had the 2 jobs, whenever I got my paycheck from my regular full-time job, I calculated how many bills or whatever that I had to pay within the next 2 weeks. I did leave myself a pretty comfortable buffer of cash to have around for the next 2 weeks. And then the remaining of that paycheck just went right into my student loans. With my per diem job, all of that paycheck went into my student loans. And I quit right before I ended up paying off my student loans, so I never made any extra money from that, but that's okay because I was fine to cut back on the amount of work that I was doing. My 8th tip for paying off your student loans quickly, and I know this one's probably kind of controversial. People have very strong opinions on this apparently, but you know what the best thing is? It's my life and it doesn't affect you now, does it? So I can do what I want to do. I moved back in with my parents. I had been living with my boyfriend. We broke up. I was very uncertain with where I wanted to go. It was an uneasy point in my life and I decided to go back home. It was the best financial move at the time. Where I live, the cost of living is extremely high. And I know, it's getting high like everywhere in the country, but it's really, really high here. So I moved back home, and even initially when I moved back home, I was like, this is gonna be a short-term thing. I'm gonna save up some money and I'm gonna get out of here. But a few months later was when I had my epiphany to pay off my student loans, and I ended up dumping a huge chunk of my savings into my loans, which was one of the most depressing things that I ever did, with the knowledge that I was going to be staying at my parents' house. I'm not a complete freeloader. I do give my parents money each month for food and different bills, so I'm not here like 100% free, you know, living in my mom's basement, because we don't have basements in Florida now, do we? I do give my parents money, but it is much less money than I would be paying if I was paying rent somewhere else. So I would advise, if you have a large amount of student debt and you are driven to pay it off and you have the opportunity, you have the relationship with your parents to stay at home, it is not ideal. There are things that I wish I could change, but it's not bad. And I know there are some people that are very for it. There are cultures where it's normal for the kids to be at home until they're married. And for some reason in America, it seems like everyone has to be out by 18. And I get both sides of the story, but hey, I did it. It was my decision. It's done. I am so thankful my parents gave me the opportunity to do that and pay off my student loans. My next tip is kind of multi-part. This is just some other ways to, I guess, make more. It's without really making more money. Just some other things that I did to save money over the years of paying off my student loans. So the first one is there are random apps out there that you can make money from. One that I regularly used was Ibotta. It's where you take pictures of your receipt and you send it in, and there'll be like certain items where you can get cash back or you can get money just for turning in the receipt. I will note, you're not gonna make a lot of money off of this. You're not gonna get rich, and the amount of money that you make off of it now compared to 3-4 years ago, it is declining. but I did get a fair chunk of change from it. The way the app works is now you need to have a $20 minimum before you can cash out. So in my experience in the last few months, I don't really use it much anymore because it's probably not worth it if you're not really looking for money, but it can be free money. It's a thing that I did. I made probably about $200 total with it. So again, it's not a lot, but hey, when you're paying off those student loans, every little dollar extra is kind of really motivating to see the balance go down. The next tip is to use credit card rewards. This is another thing that goes off with a caution. If you're the type of person who cannot control your spending and you just swipe, 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 I would recommend getting rid of your credit cards. But if you're someone like me who can control your spending, I recommend paying with credit cards because you get the cash back rewards. However, I am kind of changing my mindset on this because of the whole Big Brother thing and people tracking all of your spending, which Ibotta does as well, which I don't really use them anymore. But I might change my mind on this. But yeah, using credit cards, you can get some cash back rewards. Again, it's not a huge chunk of change, but hey, it can help out. The third thing of getting a little bit of extra money is to use an FSA card if you are eligible to get it at your job. One of the benefits of my job is that I can get an FSA card, and what that is, it's a flexible spending account. You get a card with a predetermined amount by you of money that you can use on healthcare items. These items include glasses, contacts, you can use them to buy like sunscreen, Band-Aids. You can use them for your copay, your dentist visit, a lot of health related stuff. You can look online to see what you can spend it on. But the best thing is that this money comes out tax free. So you get a card, you pay for it, and it's divided among your paychecks equally throughout the year. You're not paying taxes on that money. And the other nice benefit about it is if you're somebody who has a high deductible at the start of the year, you just swipe the card and you are not the one that actually has to fork all of the money out front. It's just evenly taken from your paycheck. And then, so the fourth thing on this tip is to deduct your student loan interest payments from your taxes. The maximum amount that you can deduct is $2,500. It's not a huge deduction, but it can save you some money. So if you are able to do it, you might as well. Now, there is a limit to this because after you make a certain amount of money, you cannot deduct the full amount, and it's really frustrating because I know like when I was working 2 jobs, it kind of screwed me on that end, but in my mind, working the 2 jobs, I ended up making more money even though it screwed me on the taxes, but that's how the government works, and we just gotta work with it. My last tip is to just keep a positive mindset about it. Know that there is an end in mind. And one of the great things I think about having the spreadsheet was I could kind of estimate how much I was paying each month and be able to edit it as I went along, but it gave me an idea of when I would be paying off my loans, and I could play around with numbers. If I increase this payment this month, how much would it change to as how much longer it would take me to pay off my loans if I picked up an extra shift, if I cut back here. It was a real motivator for me to actually see an end date and know when this would all be over. The last thing I did to keep me motivated to get rid of those student loans was that I made a little pyramid that I colored along as I hit new milestones, and the milestones I set for myself were in bulks of $10,000. This was my little pyramid, and whenever I reached a new 10,000, I would color it in and I would write the date, and it just kept me motivated because as I got closer to my end date, I was paying off those 10,000 chunks sooner and sooner. So it's a silly thing, but it's an easy thing, and it did keep me going. In the long run, I ended up paying approximately $115,000 in my student loans. My initial borrowing amount was around $91,000, and my ending final payment was around $115,000. So about $24,000-$25,000 went between interest and random fees and capitalization and all that crap that the government collects. And that was with me paying off quick. I mean, with a few bumps in the road, I wasn't always on the plan to pay off quick. Otherwise, I would have done it sooner. But, you know, that's life. That's a lot of money, and that makes me frustrated about the government, the fact that the interest is so high. And if I had one wish to the government, it would be to lower the student loan interest rates. I don't know what they are today. I think I did read somewhere that they are going back down, but it's probably still too much money. To make these things more affordable, please lower the interest rates. Those are my tips on how I paid off my student loans early. I hope this motivates somebody out there who maybe is also on the same plan. And trust me, I get it. Some of the things that I did, other people cannot do, but maybe some of the things I did, you can do and make use of student loans. Those things are a beast in this country. Anywho, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you learned something. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye!